Got a dandy of a book report today. The book is titled Fishing, an Encyclopedic Guide to Tackle and Tactics for Fresh and Salt Water by Joseph D. Bates, Jr., drawings by Ted Burwell, and paintings by Milton Wheeler. It says other books by the author here. Spinning for American Game Fish, Trout Waters and How to Fish Them, Streamer Fly Fishing, Spinning for Fresh Water Game Fish, Spinning for Saltwater Game Fish, The Outdoor Cook's Bible, Streamer Fly Tying and Fishing, Elementary Fishing, the Atlantic Salmon and Flies and Fishing, Reading the Water, Streamers and Bucktails, The Big Fish Fly. So this fella has written several books. Looks like the book was back in 1973 and it was published by Outdoor Life Books. It has a little inscription here in the beginning of the book: to my son and to my daughter, Bruce Ellis Bates and Pamela Bates Bird, graduates to the thrills of the floating fly. The table of contents out here. It looks like this book is 769 pages. 769 pages, and there's 40 chapters, and just about anything that you want to know about either freshwater fishing or saltwater fishing is covered in this book. Here's a sample of a chapter. This is the first chapter. It's titled Spinning. And I'll read just a little bit about the first paragraph here. In the 1940s, fishermen were startled to see a few rugged individualists using an underslung reel attached to a light rod with outsized guides which could accurately cast even the tiniest of weighted lures amazing distances. They called the reel a coffee grinder. There's a few examples of some spinning reels from the 1970s. There's a Mitchell 300, a Shakespeare Sigma, an Abu Garcia Cardinal, and Zebco's Pro Staff. There's a little demonstration here on how to do a side cast with a spinning reel. Fell out on a boat. There's a backhand cast, overhead cast. Another example of a chapter. This is chapter 3 on bait casting. And all sorts of stuff on bait casting, rods and reels. There's the same fellow that was demonstrating the spinning reel, demonstrating side cast with a bait casting reel. The flip cast. There's some drawings on how to flip your bait into a likely looking spot. Here we've got a chapter on lures for freshwater fish. We got spoons. We got spinners. We got trolling rigs. We got surface plugs. Some more surface plugs. There's a happy angler exhibits a largemouth bass and crappie that fell victims to one of Arbogast midget Arbogast plugs. There's floating diving plugs, sinking plugs, buzz baits, all sorts of information on. There's some plastic worms rigged up various different ways back in the 1970s. Here's a chapter on baits and how to rig them. Got how to keep worms and how to gather nymphs, how to hook your worms, rigging minnows, all sorts of stuff here. We You got some nice color photos here. A largemouth bass. There's some underwater pictures of a bass. Some guys out in the boat. There's a fella up there catching a big northern pike. And another fella fighting a big northern pike. There's a chapter on fly fishing, the theory and the tackle involved in it, chapter 6. Nice picture of a big trout with a fly fisherman on the stream here. All sorts of information about fly fishing, fly lines, fly reels, some examples of fly reels. There's a leader tied to your fly line. Some examples of some flies, how to fly cast. There's some pictures of a fellow fly casting showing everybody how it's done. All sorts of information in this book. Here's some more color photos. There's a fella out on the stream there fishing for trout. Looks like he caught a couple. Got a couple of them there next to his rod and reel. There's a fella fishing for trout with looks like a daredevil spoon. And a couple more pictures. Now they've got a chapter on fly tying. There's the essential materials that you need to start tying your own flies. Here's some examples of flies and how to tie them. There's a whole chapter on just about fish hooks, all the different hook patterns. Here's some examples of hooks. Keeping your hooks sharp and buying quality hooks. Another example of a chapter, how to find fish in streams and brooks. Got some drawings here of where the fish would likely be at. There's one on brushy brooks, meadow brooks. I thought these were really cool. There's some nice paintings of the fish. Here's one of a largemouth bass, brook trout, brown trout, rainbow trout, northern pike, king salmon, striped bass, and weak fish. There's a photograph in here, a couple of fellas with a handsome catch of smallmouth adorn a stringer of satisfied fishermen. Another cool picture of a fellow with a northern pike. Underneath it says, northern pike leaps and thrashes just when the angler thinks he has it licked. Pike and muskie often play dead as they come to boat side, then make a last-ditch fight for freedom. There's another pike that hit a large plug there. Chapter on ice fishing, equipment for ice fishing, lures for ice fishing, on personal equipment, different stuff that a fisherman might find handy. Wading hints and wading gear. From a float tube, that's something you don't see much anymore. Float tubes, at least where I fish. Here's part 2 of the book, saltwater fishing. There's tackle for saltwater, all sorts of stuff in here. rods for saltwater. Here's baits and lures used for saltwater fishing. Some more lures. Got a little thing in here about the moon phases and how it affects fishing. There's a fella fishing off a pier. Some different rigs. Eastern inshore fishing. Neat picture of a guy landing a big saltwater striper. Very end of the book, it's got how to keep, prepare, and cook to catch. And then it has some books for the fishermen. Tells you how to keep your fish fresh, how to fillet them out. Here's a little information on fish cooking, frying, broiling, outdoor grilling. It even has some recipes for fish in here. That's just a small sample of everything that's in this giant book here on fishing. And when they call it an encyclopedia, I believe them. They didn't leave much out. It's a very interesting book. A lot of that information can still be used now, almost 50 years later. So if you're out and about and you happen to run into this book, I'm not sure if it's still being printed or not, but I'm sure you can find some copies of this book if you look hard enough. Check it out. It's a great read.